Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Chris Woolley, your host for Let's Develop. Today we've got Erica Lane Harvey here with Someday is Code for Never. So we're going to be talking about your dreams, making them a reality, why it's worth it, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Those of you that are just joining us for the very first time, welcome. This is Let's Develop. It's a webinar series brought to you by American Color Imaging, and we've got a new episode every 2 weeks. Basically, what we do is we bring in an amazing photographer and we pick their brain. They share information with us, and we just have a really, really good time while doing it. So thank you to ACI for making that happen, because you guys are kind of awesome that way. If you have missed the previous episodes, including the one that we had last time, Perfecting Your Price List, and I was actually presenting on that one. So if you want to know like how much you should be charging, how to lay out your price list, if it should end in like $99 or even with zeros, or what you use, what tricks and tips, and how create your own collections work and all that fun stuff, that episode is live, and it's on ACI's website, including a downloadable template for doing a create your own collection on there. So go ahead and jump on there and check it out. And just a reminder that if you stay till the end, we do have some awesome prizes from American Color Imaging to give away, and we'll be doing that at the tail end of the session, as well as a special that's going on with them that lasts next couple of weeks too. So let's dive into Miss Erica Lane Harvey. So those of you that don't know her, she's a master photographer, a craftsman, certified professional photographer. She's from South Dakota, graduated from Brooks Institute, and then she went and did some working for an advertising agency. So she's got a ton of experience when it comes to that, but the real passion kind of hit in 2014 when she got into nature photography and education and rebranded her business into Erica Lane Photography. You may have, I'm pretty much guarantee if you're watching this that you've seen her work, mostly because it's up on the screen, but also because she was a Diamond Photographer of the Year in 2020, as well as winning first place in the Landscape Nature category 2020 Grand Imaging Awards, which is a crazy, crazy hard feat to do. And now she gets to spend a lot of time traveling and photographing absolutely stunning, gorgeous places. So I'm very, very excited for what you're going to share with us today, Erica.
Oh, well, thank you, Chris. Mike, you made me sound really awesome. Thanks.
Right? It's the announcer DJ voice, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Erica. Yeah. She's just absolutely like when I very first met you, like we became instant friends. Like you've just got such a genuine personality, and then you couple that with like crazy, crazy talent, and you're like, okay, I need more Erica in my life. Like everybody up in Washington, I don't know how many people in the crowd here are from Washington, but we just absolutely we sing praises to her. Like at our annual convention and everything, we have a moment like we're channeling our Erica. We need her. Just so much fun, and she's got great stories to share. Oh, you're getting lots of love in the comment section too. So
my cheeks are gonna hurt from all this laughing.
Right. Well, what information do you have? What are you going to share? What you dropping on us today?
Well, the theme that I wanted to talk about has become a mantra for me for the last almost since 2014, so almost 8 years now, which is someday is code for never. And this little mantra worked its way into my life that year. I, believe it or not, was watching a movie called Night and Day. I don't know if you've seen it, with Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise. It's really fun if you haven't seen it.
I have not. I've seen the poster for it, but I've never actually seen the movie.
Yeah, the movie is pretty cool. I really enjoy it. And there was a scene where they're getting on a plane, and it's just Cameron Diaz and him. And, I'm not going to give you the rundown of the movie, yeah. But they're on the plane, and they're talking, and she goes, yeah, someday I'm going to do this. And he kind of sits and reflects for a second, and he goes, someday is really just code for never. And it was like this light bulb and an explosion just went off in my head. And I was thinking about all the times I had said that word. And I was like, he's right. That's a word that we say to placate ourselves because we know we're not going to do it, but we pretend that we are by saying that word. And so at that instant, I was just like, okay, what's the first thing I can think of that I can afford to do right away and get done? And it was go to the Canadian Rockies. So I'm like instantly like look it up on the computer, seeing how much it costs, how far to get there. And then Tony, who's on with us today, I messaged her and I was like, do you want to go to the Canadian Rockies with me? I'm going in July.
We're setting a date. That's no longer someday. It's happening.
Yeah. And so I've just, ever since then, we got there and it was just amazing. And I had been saying someday since like almost 2007, so almost, I can't do math, 7, 8 years, whatever it is. And I was just like, what have I been missing out on by saying someday? Why didn't I just go? And so I've kind of been just trying to hit all those check boxes of things that I've been wanting to see. And most of them have to do with traveling, but not all of it. As a lot of people know, I recently opened a studio space. That's been a someday for forever for me, but I was scared to do it, and it was just kind of like, well, the perfect spot opened, pandemic's still happening, but I'm tired of saying, what if? Let's just do it. And so I did it, and I was nauseous for a week, and here we are. I'm having a great time. So
Crystal says it's an awesome studio, though.
Thank you, Crystal. But even without the someday part, for me, traveling, it's not really about the photos, it's about experience things. And so I have this image up here. This was from one of my first overseas trips where I kind of went by myself almost. It wasn't like with a family or a school. My friend was getting married in Santorini and asked me to be her maid of honor. And she's like, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. Never been there. Let's do this. And I got the travel bug into experiencing all these new things. I think traveling outside the US is so important to see how other people live, how different cultures are, because we kind of live in this own little bubble over here in North America. We only got Mexico and Canada. There's like all these amazing places to see across the oceans, and we're missing out. And so I put this image up. It's not the best image, but it's just, that's what started it all for me. And I've been addicted ever since. Like, I'll be on vacation and I'm like having a great time. And I'm like, where should I go next? What else do I need to see? And so that triggered this huge thing of me just traveling. So then for me, the next big trip that I went on started with another friend asking me to go. She was going to be in South Africa and she's like, do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, when are we going? And so we started planning everything. And then of course I started planning other things besides her, because obviously Africa is a huge continent. I didn't want to fly all the way over there and just see one country. It's too long of a flight. So I had planned all these other stops and then
maximize it.
Right. Because it's an expensive flight. It's hard to fly out from the middle of the country. It's expensive. It takes too long. And I hate plane rides. But I got all the planning done and then she had to back out. I can't remember why now, but I was like, oh, but I was really excited about going. And so I was like, well, I'm still going. So I just got rid of the part that I was supposed to see her. So I've still never been to South Africa, but I really wanted to see Victoria Falls. I wanted to see the world's largest curtain of water. And so I picked March to go because that's when the water's running at its highest. I mean, it's in the middle of an arid sort of plains, trees area. There's not a lot of rainforest, but this waterfall is so huge and creates so much moisture. There's a rainforest right in front of the waterfall just because of the waterfall. That's crazy. Like you have to wear a slicker to get even near the waterfall because it's just raining. It's so cool. And so this image is one of my favorites from the trip. This is sort of pre-Erica being respectful of wildlife. You should always be respectful of wildlife and don't encroach on their safety bubble. But we're talking back in 2008. I probably didn't follow all those rules because I wanted epic images. We all go through that learning period. Well, the place that I was staying at, hotel had perfectly manicured grass and all the wild zebras came in to eat the manicured grass. So I looked outside my window and I saw these zebras and I'm like, I'll be right back. And so I had this vision of this image and, to do this image properly probably takes a really big high quality lens, which I didn't have at that time. So I just kept clicking. And then I'd step a few feet closer because, they're eating manicured grass. It's like, it's got to be safe. And then it just kept getting a little bit closer, got this image. And then that's when the zebra was like, look here, lady, and kind of huffed at me.
You don't need a macro
like,
for this.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm going to step back now. Sorry. But it's just, these experiences, like it's so beneficial seeing animals like this in the wild where they live and not at a zoo. And it just helps you have a greater appreciation for things that you have, for the animals and the environment. This trip in particular, I learned to never complain about the price of anything here. Even if gas goes up to $5 a gallon, I will not complain about it, because when I visited Africa back in 2008, Zimbabwe was in such turmoil that as we were crossing the border from Zambia to Zimbabwe, I saw these people walking across carrying like all this stuff. And I asked my guide, I was like, what are they doing? And he's like, well, unfortunately, we have a hard time getting food and supplies here. It's cheaper for these people to quit their job, cross the border into a different country to buy food, bring it back to sell it. And I was like, whoa, I had never been exposed to something like that. And I was like, I'm never complaining about anything again. And then when I was at our hotel, because of all the turmoil, we were the only people staying at our hotel. It was crazy. There was room for 20 guests, and it was me and my sister. So we had a private host, private chef, because people felt unsafe, visiting this country. And so when we were getting our meals, like they would feed us food sometimes that I really didn't like cucumbers, but I would eat them because I didn't want to leave anything and look ungrateful, because obviously people were suffering. So going on that trip really opened my eyes. And that's one of the reasons I always hope that my photography inspires people to travel and to experience the world, and not everything around us is sunshine and rainbows, even though sometimes photography depicts it that way, because a lot of times we don't want to share the sad moments. Thankfully, we have journalists to do that. It's a hard profession. That's actually what I was going to be until I realized that I wouldn't be very good at it. You're not supposed to help, and I'm pretty sure I would help people. So
that non-biased thing. Yep. An observer.
Yep.
Voyeur.
Yep. I'm not very good at that. So this image here really ties in with a statement that you had said about my rebranding of my business. So when I had first started my business, I did what made money, which is commercial work, make videos and do all this stuff. But really my passion was nature and getting out and seeing the world. And so in 2014, when I rebranded to be my name, which is Erica Lane Photography, I really focused on the nature at first. And this image from the Tetons is sort of what I'm known for. If you look really closely at my logo, this is my logo. It's the two bears. And
I think this is one of your most recognizable ones. Andy in the comments is saying this is one of his favorite shots of hers.
Yep. Everybody knows me for this photo. I've slowly become the bear lady, even though I don't really photograph bears that often. But I'm the bear lady. It's like, oh, I better start photographing more bears. But I had been wanting to visit the Tetons. I had been to Yellowstone a good 5-6 times before I went to the Tetons. Like, it's literally a 3-hour drive south, and I'd never been to the Tetons. And so when I rebranded my business and I quit my job, I was like, I'm going to the Tetons. I'm doing it. And so booked the trip, and it was only for one day because I was mostly in Yellowstone. But you just never know what's going to happen. Even if you only have 24 hours, even 12 hours, you have no idea what could happen. It could be a total waste of time, or something like this could happen. I got up for sunrise and it was foggy, and I was like, oh no, I've only got one sunrise. And so I just kept driving south, trying to find these mountains, and eventually found them. The sun was coming up. I just had to make do with what I was given. And it was an okay photo. It's in the book. The whole story is in the book. But what was happening was, while I was taking that sunrise picture, my card started flashing card air.
Uh-oh.
And yeah,
we're talking photographer's nightmare, huh?
Yeah, a week's worth of images on this card, because I'm stupid and just kept using the same card. I'm like, oh my God, no. And so I'm like, don't panic. And if this card error hadn't happened, I would have kept driving south, and I had planned to loop the whole park. But instead, I panicked, and I'm like, I need my laptop now. So I turned around to head back to my laptop. And as I was coming around the bend, it's still foggy again because I headed back into it. I see 2 cars, and I was like, okay, relax. Let's just see what they're looking at. And there it is, a grizzly bear. And I had never seen, a grizzly bear in the park before, because I'd obviously never been there. And I was like, oh, and I just quickly try to get my lenses. I'd been doing sunrise, so I wasn't prepared for it. And then by the time I got ready, the bear had moved. So I went and repositioned my car with this National Geographic vision of this bear coming towards me, and its face and its teeth. And I was like, this is going to be epic. And I see the bear start to stand up, and I was like, getting ready. and it stood up backwards. And I got really upset. I actually dropped my camera down, and I vividly recall going, really? Really? And then all of a sudden, in that split second, this little bear goes bloop, and I'm like, and I pop my camera up as fast as I can. I got one frame off, and then the mom turns and she's down, and that's it. That's all I have. And it's handheld at like super high ISO at 6 a.m. in the fog. So is it technically the best image? No, I actually didn't even like this image when I first took it, but then I posted it for the world to see on Facebook, and all of a sudden it's what I'm known for. It's so crazy. And it's because they're backwards. I've heard so many comments with them not seeing their faces. There's something about it that allows people's imaginations to run and put their own story in it. So I show this image because I only had 12 hours, right? I arrived in the Tetons at 11:30, and I'm like, I'm seeing the Tetons and I got to keep on going. So I had one morning, really 12 hours. Well, then not soon after I took this, then I found these guys.
Aww.
And I mean, it was crazy. It was one of the best mornings I've ever had. And I only found them because another photographer was trying to tell me something. And apparently I just couldn't hear because I was at a cabin and I was taking some pictures, and this guy saw me getting in my car and he yells something like something, something, cow, something, something. And I'm like, what? Cow? And he said it again, and I still heard cow. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. I'm like, I see cows all the time. And I was like, whatever, I'm already headed. Because I could understand something about Mormon Row. And I was like, well, that's where I'm headed anyways, whatever. So I go to Mormon Row, and which, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's this settlement in the Tetons that now has been gifted back to the park, but it has a whole bunch of old historic settlements from, a small little Mormon community that used to live there. And you can walk around the houses, and they're, pretty dated. It's pretty cool. And as I pulled up, this lady was the only other person there with her tour, and she saw my camera. This is the first time I've appreciated someone noticing my high quality camera. And she goes, that's a nice camera. I go, huh? She goes, I think you're going to want to see something. And I go, really? She goes, yep, right over there under that building is a pile of coyote puppies. And my brain goes, oh, he was saying coyote, not cow. So there you have it. So that's where this image came from. And it was such an amazing morning. And then after I took those two images, I headed to Utah. So you just never know. So even if you only have, a morning, but you want to do something, just go do it. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. The worst thing is we're out taking pictures, right? And having a beautiful time. Another shot from the image from the Tetons that I love. This was after a week of literally no sunrises and no sunsets. It was just like awful, but I was still having a good time. But photography wise, it was awful. And it was our last night in the park with my mom. And I saw this glimpse of some hints of golden tone under these clouds, because you can see the Tetons are pretty massive. And I looked at my mom and I said, I got to go. I'm pretty sure nothing's going to happen. It's probably going to just totally epic fail, but I'm going to go. And instead, this is what happened. So never assume that, the clouds aren't going to cooperate. If anything, on the days that are crappy and foggy, those are the days that you're gifted with the most beautiful sunrises, when that sun can peek out at that last minuscule second. And so the images here, the full stories and stuff are in my book that I self-published last year. Definitely more details in there. They're all kind of tied into what I call What the F Moments, which is the title of the book. And it's just all my travel adventures of what I've been up to, because as I mentioned, I'm addicted to it. So every year I got to go somewhere. So the pandemic has been very hard on me. It's very hard. I was actually supposed to go to Patagonia, which was one of my biggest some days codes for never. And I went to bed after they said that the Europe wasn't allowed to fly here. And I woke up to a canceled workshop, and I still haven't gotten to go. I'm supposed to go this March. So
fingers crossed on that one.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So yeah, it's just, there's so many times in our life when we're like, oh, I want to see this, I want to see that. And we just don't make time for it. And if you don't stop and think, okay, what do I really want to do? and how do I make time for it, then you never will. I mean, our lives are so busy with appointments and work and health and you name it. Hitting those life goals, life's too short. Like next thing you know, you're going to wake up and you're 40 and you still haven't gone to Patagonia. Those sorts of things. Or you're going to be, my parents' age when everyone's supposed to retire, right? And you're like, okay, now it's the time I'm going to travel. And all of a sudden you can't, right? Because health got the better of you. You maybe didn't take care of yourself. You didn't make that a priority. And so all these things come into play with that someday is code for never. It doesn't have to be landscape photography. It could be someday I'm going to open a studio. Someday I'm going to work out, and make time for that. They're all the same thing. And if you don't make an actionable plan and actually visualize steps to do it, it'll never happen. Because sometimes they seem daunting, right? They're these huge tasks, like going to Patagonia is expensive. It's like, okay, I'm going to need to research how much it costs. And so then, okay, now break that down. How can I make extra cash? If it's that important, can I sell some stuff? Do I need all this camera gear? Sure I do. But
right. Don't swear like that. Of course we need all of our gear.
But maybe I can minimize it. I don't know. Maybe I can get rid of some backdrops. I don't know. Maybe I could sell Mabel. I don't know. I would never sell Mabel, but
no, you can't do that.
Yeah. But that's what it is. There's things you can do.
Breaking it down is what you're saying. So get into stuff that's a little bit more bite-sized.
Yeah, make them small goals. That's been proven that if you start with a whole bunch of small goals, as you create those accomplishments and start feeling, okay, this is attainable, then the goals can become a little bit larger because you create this snowball effect that Dave Ramsey would call it when paying off his loans. The same thing applies to goals. Accomplish the little things first, feel positive, feel that you can do it. And then it's also become a habit, right? You're like, okay, I did this. I can do this now. But if you don't make time, that the biggest thing is making the time and thinking about it and stop saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And we're all victim to it. I still fall victim to these things, but as long as you're aware of it, you have a better chance of success, and falling back into our old habits of saying someday or tomorrow or next month or whatever.
It's making it a reality and prioritizing it. Is that the key takeaway that's here?
Most definitely. I mean, working out is definitely for me one of those some days that I try so hard, but God, I really hate working out.
Right. Pizza is so much better than working out. No.
It is. Why can't we burn calories eating? So why not?
I do think I'm getting a lot of chat in the comment section here about your book. Can we take a couple of minutes and you tell us about what is this book? Because we're getting fanfare, people saying that they just love it. It's a great Christmas gift. It's got lots of great stories. So tell us about this. What's the book?
Yeah, so this book was actually one of my big somedays. When I was going to college at Brooks, I would spend a good 4 of my evenings of the week down at the Borders bookstore, which that was my first time ever seeing a Borders bookstore because coming from Rapid City, we didn't have a big bookstore. So that in itself was like, ooh. But I would go to the photography section and I would look at all those books and see all the beautiful pictures. And I just thought, someday I'm going to have my own book. Well, photography school and those books were probably a good 20 years ago now. So this is a very long someday. And I basically turned around a sad someday of not going to Patagonia. And I thought, well, let's hold off on that because it is still happening. But what's another thing that I've always wanted to do? And I thought, well, let's work on doing this book project. Tony, who's on here, my best friend of the last 25 years, who's always supportive of what I do. She knows how to use InDesign. I do. So,
friends that know InDesign are great friends.
She is the keystone to this project. And for me, the pandemic was a wonderful thing because for me, she got put on furlough, which means she could help me with my book. It's bad for her, but positive for me. And so for 2 weeks, we thought we had 2 weeks. I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, we got 2 weeks. This will be easy. So we start working on the book. We're getting all this stuff done. And then slowly, the cutoff to her furlough was coming up. And we thought, well, at least we started some of it because we had been saying we wanted to work on this for 2 or more years, but never prioritized it. And then sadly, she lost her job. And so we spent our entire pandemic making this book over Zoom because we couldn't meet in person, right? We didn't want to risk it. I think over the course, we started designing the book in March 2020, and you guys got the books in your hands March 2021. So it took it exactly a year to design, to print, and get it to your guys' hands. And we probably met out of all that in person 5 times. Pretty crazy. And those were usually outside except for one time. So it's really her book, but it's my stories and my photography. It's got all my adventures. You can see some sample pictures in the link that Chris is going to provide. So there's 51 stories. It was supposed to be 50, but it took us so long to finish editing the book. Something epic happened. So we had to put in 51 because I couldn't leave out the Mount Rushmore fireworks. So that's how the book ends. And that's the longest story in the book. Besides, it's the one time I went viral. It's like my claim to fame for there. But then the book also goes over my gear. So I shoot Nikon, so it may not cross-platform to Sony or Canon or other brands as well. But you can at least see the lens choices that I have. And then what's really cool is the start of each story has all the metadata. So it'll say what camera, what lens, my exposure. And then we ran our fundraiser through Kickstarter because, right, I didn't have money to publish a book. I just didn't have it in the pandemic. And so, it's a platform driven by interaction, with your supporters and everything. And one of the things that came out of it, which I loved, was I was doing a live video talking about the metadata. And I said, oh, I guess I really don't have a place to say if I used a tripod or not. And I go, And one of my watchers is like, well, why don't you add a tripod to the little camera logo you did? And I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And so that's how that got in the book. So if I used a tripod, if the little camera has a tripod on it. I was like, that's brilliant. So brainstorming and working with other people is so helpful, especially in achieving your goals, because sometimes you got to step outside of your box and get other experiences. And then the back of the book, of course, has my top five. So top 5 shooting tips, editing tips, locations. So it's a little bit for everybody. If you like to read, if you like to look at pictures, or if you want to become a better photographer. So yeah.
I can attest. It is an awesome book. I've got my copy here too. It's definitely worth looking. We get comments on it all the time because we got it out at our studio, and people just love flipping through it. Be like, "Whoa, that's so cool!" Do have a question here from Lisa, wanting to know if you can talk more about how you self-published, where, how, via on demand, or did you order thousands of copies? What happened?
Yeah. So, well, before this webinar even started, Chris and I were talking about how I have control issues. So I self-published because I didn't want to give anybody rights to own my work. I have a hard time letting that go because it's my work. All artists do. So Tony and I reached out to some photographers in our area that we knew had printed. A lot of the printers had been over in, surprise, China and some of the other Asian countries. And I was like, with everything going on, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to support local. So we researched some other printers in the area, and believe it or not, the printer that we used was Bang Publishing, which is over in Minnesota with Lisa in Brainerd. And so it was really nice to work with someone regional where I could call, and then I got to drive there and actually watch the book get printed, which was like the coolest thing ever. I had no idea what I was doing, but it worked. And so the Kickstarter, for those of you that aren't familiar, you ask for a set amount, and if you don't make that goal, you get nothing. And so I was like, okay, I have to have a come into Jesus moment. And at what point, if I need X number of dollars, am I okay with investing my own money? So we researched how much the books were going to cost. And then we took money off of that. I was going to invest my own money. So to print the books was upwards of like 25 grand, which is why I didn't have the money. And I thought, well, I'm okay with putting in 5 grand or more of my own money if I have to, because I'd rather do that than not be successful. And so that's how we picked the amount on Kickstarter. That was one of the hardest things to do because you don't want to screw yourself and set it too low. And then all of a sudden you're like 15,000 short, so it's a really tough thing to happy balance that. And then we ended up ordering about 3,000 books. I have a basement full of books. And so, unfortunately, with the pandemic still going on and stuff, I didn't get to quite push them out to the stores as I'd like. So that's kind of next year's plan on getting boxes set up for the local bookstores and retail places and stuff. Because the one thing we did learn a little too late is that, and I think I was telling you this, Chris, a lot of bookstores now don't really want to deal with a self-published person. They still want to buy books through even small publishing houses. So Tony and I have that challenge this winter to try to get our book with someone, so that way we can get in with those local bookstores. So it's a tough thing. It's still a work in progress, but it's probably one of the proudest moments of my life, designing, doing that all and just learning it on the fly. It's this pretty scary thing. And it felt really good too to have all my friends supporting the project. Like, I honestly didn't think we were going to be successful. I was, typing up the letter. Thank you for believing in us. Sorry we didn't make it.
But look at you. I mean, you didn't wait for someday. You're like, I'm making this happen. And then you made it happen, though. And it's a really cool product.
Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty scary. I'm pretty sure Tony dealt with my anxiety a lot during the whole thing. She's my level-headed person when I get sad. She's like, okay, Erica, just relax. It'll be okay. Think positive.
We all need a Tony in our life, right?
We do.
So she says that you share the anxiety. Awesome. So tell us more stories.
Yeah. So this image here, I put this in because, I haven't always done photography full time. So this was one of those times I was working part-time and trying to get my business going. And so I was working at a railroad museum up in Hill City. And so when I would drive home that 30 minutes every day, I would try to stop somewhere new to find new and exciting things. And we had a flood that year. And so this is actually a picnic area at a local reservoir called Pactola. There's actually picnic tables hidden under all those trees. And we had an extra 15 to 20 feet in this lake. So all the parking lots and things were flooded. And so I was driving home and I saw this as I was driving by and I was like, I need to photograph that. So I pulled in and I started getting all my stuff ready. And I'm like looking through my camera bag and I'm like, where's my SD card? Oh my God, is there no SD card in here? So I thought that I had no SD card. And so I panicked because I didn't want to miss the light. So I was like, I don't have time for this. They must be on my desk. So I packed everything up, drove back home thinking they were going to be sitting right there on my desk. Got home, there was still no SD card. And I was like, wait a minute, are they still in the bag? And so I go back out to the car. They were still in the bag. I just got so panicked and, didn't take time to settle my thoughts and really look. And so then I drove back, still got the shot, but I put it in here just to talk about always giving yourself more than enough time when you get to a location. So when you do have these moments, you don't miss out on the photo. I always try to show up minimum an hour, but usually 2 hours before I'm supposed to take the photo. So that way, if I screw up, or I get in a bison jam on the way, I don't know, that you always have enough time. But we're not here just for all those stories. Some of it has to do with worldly travels. And so sometimes when you're traveling, you aren't always gifted the best light, right? Because you have 30 minutes or this 2 hours to look around Hobbiton, which is what this picture is here. And by all means, it's a beautiful photo. There's nothing wrong with the overcast day. It kind of ties into the theme of Hobbiton, but that's not what I envisioned. And so there are instances when things are maybe make-believe, like Hobbiton, that I'm okay with, creating something more out of it that I had hoped I could see. So this is what I was hoping for, and that's what I got. So normally when you look at my photography, it's natural. I don't alter the light and stuff, but in this instance, because Hobbiton is a fake place, I felt okay putting in the vision that I had hoped for. But so that's the hard thing with traveling, even though it's your someday is code for never, the weather's not always the best. For those of you that are friends with John Powers, he was experiencing that this last week over in Iceland. He was getting lots of fog and rain and clouds and no northern lights. So you just kind of have to go with the flow and try not to get upset, which I usually do anyways, but try not to get upset that the light's not perfect. And just remember to be in the moment and be like, oh my gosh, I'm in Hobbiton. Like, how freaking cool is this? And what is really cool is, see that little mailbox? So this tree that you're looking at is fake. It's not a real tree. They made it specifically to match the vision that they wanted. And so they put all these leaves on it. And then they showed Peter Jackson the tree and he goes, it looks great. but I think those leaves are too light. Can we make them all darker?" After they put all the leaves on it, he made them repaint all the leaves, all of them, all the fake leaves, because he wanted them darker. So they're fake leaves. And so they fall off all the time. And so the groundskeeper stuffed the leaves in that little mailbox. And so we were on a private tour and our guide gave us some of these leaves. So I got to take home some leaves from the fake tree. So if you're a huge Lord of the Rings nerd like we are, that's a pretty cool thing. So I can tell you're not as excited about it as I am, but I was ecstatic. And so we have them and you can see the two colors on them because the paint's been chipping off from the previous color. So that was kind of fun. So those are the kind of moments that you get when you travel overseas. And this is another one of those things where I had been to New Zealand in high school for a foreign exchange. And so we were supposed to go to Milford Sound, but it was winter. And so the road got closed. So I never got to see it. And it's supposed to be one of the most beautiful places in New Zealand. And so when my husband and I were going, mostly for Lord of the Rings, because that's one of the reasons that we bonded as a couple. And I told him, I said, we got to go to Milford Sound then. And I got to go there for sunrise. Well, to stay at Milford Sound, super expensive, like $500 a night. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So we stayed in a town like 2.5 hours away. And so I had to make my poor husband get up at like 3 a.m. to sit back in a car and fall asleep while I drove 2.5 hours to this location for sunrise. And so I got there. I didn't see anything that I drove through. It was pitch black. I went through this giant tunnel and I was just like, I have no idea where I'm going. Thank God for GPS. Like, I still don't know how we survived without GPS. Like, printed off Google Maps. No, thank you. GPS is the best. But we got to the parking lot and I kissed my husband. I'm like, okay, go back to sleep. Bye. And I go off to do my glorious thing and take pictures while he's sleeping. And unfortunately, one of the things that I didn't think about because I don't live near the ocean was to check the tide. I was hoping for high tide, not low tide. So all this junk is just everywhere. And so it was really hard to find a focal point that wasn't full of just crap. And so I just kept slowly walking farther out through this muck, trying to find a spot. Halfway out, I hear a horn start honking. And I'm like, what's that? And then I thought, well, if it's my husband, he'd yell. So then I listened and I didn't hear anything. So I was like, okay, go back to doing my thing. And then all of a sudden, like 20, 30 minutes later, I look up and there's my husband just kind of standing next to me. And I'm like, hey. He's like, hey. And then he just goes, our car got hit. And I'm like, ha, 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 ha.
Oh, damn.
And he goes, no, really, our car got hit. And I go, what? And apparently, while he was taking a nap in the car, these little ladies were driving a larger size SUV, and decided to park it in the regular parking lot. And apparently they've never driven one before. So they just like sideswiped our car as they were trying to park. And apparently whoever was parking was driving wasn't supposed to be driving, because by the time he got out to look at them, they were doing like this fire drill to change seats on who was driving the vehicle. And unfortunately, I'm the one that planned the trip. So like I knew where all the information for the budget rental car was. I had the phone, I had all this stuff, and he's got nothing. And so he's like taking little notes on this piece of paper and all this stuff. And yeah, so long story short, the biggest lesson from this is if you ever get in an accident and they tell you to put your accident report in the box with the keys, take your phone and photograph the accident report. Because what's going to happen is the US office is going to call you and say, we saw that your car got hit. Can we get the accident report? And I'm like, I left it in the box where the people told me to put it. No idea where it is. And so I had to pay money because the car got hit. So not fun. So all these fun little things happen when you're traveling. And so obviously not all the positives, but I bring them up because they will happen. That's just the way life is. And you just have to still learn, I mean, you guys don't see that at the image, right? But that's what I see is that our car got hit. But it's still a beautiful moment, even though all that stuff happened. But these are the kind of stories that are in the book. And so that's part of the reason I picked the images, just because they do have the more fun stories associated with them. It's just like, oh, there's another pretty picture, This one here is all thanks to my travel agent. My niece, when she graduated high school, I took her to Australia. And we ended up picking Australia. That's actually the funniest thing about this whole thing. I let her choose where we were going to go because we were supposed to go to Patagonia. That's where we were actually going. And then she took too long picking what college she wanted to go to. So by the time I was ready to book the hotel I wanted to stay at, it was all full. So no Patagonia. That's where this all started. And so I said, okay, well, we have to go in December because that's already the time that I've set aside. So seasons, of course, are swapped. So I said, here's your options. I'm like, you can go to Australia, we can go to Africa, or we can go to Machu Picchu. You decide. And she comes back with, well, let's go to Australia. And I wasn't really excited about it because I'm pretty sure you've seen those videos where everything can kill you in Australia. I wasn't too interested in meeting any of those things, but I held up to my word and that's where we went. And then it was like the first day of the trip and we arrived in Melbourne and it was really hot. And she's like, boy, it's really hot here. I was like, well, what'd you expect? It's Australia. And she's like, well, I don't know. I was like, did you not research? I was like, why did you pick Australia? And she goes, well, I just didn't want to sit and look at things and I didn't want it to be hot. And I'm like, you realize we're going to Ayers Rock, right? It's like 105 in the desert. She's like, oh, I guess I didn't realize. So research is very important when picking your locations on when you want to go. So if you don't like the heat, try to go to Australia, not in December. But the one perk to going in December, if you're going to be in Sydney, is the Sydney fireworks. So it was pretty cool to be one of the first people to celebrate the new year. And I think I posted something along the lines of greetings from the future. Happy New Year to everybody when I posted my picture. So it's pretty fun. I think it's like 14 hours ahead or something like that. So that was pretty cool. And I didn't even think about it. So the one perk to having a travel agent, if you don't want to research, they can tell you these things. So my travel agent was the one that pointed out, hey, by the way, you're going to be in Sydney for the fireworks. And I was like, really, is that a big deal? Because I've never been there before. She's like, yes, it's a big deal. So I started researching more and found out that if I didn't feel like camping out all day and wasting an entire day sitting on a corner somewhere to take pictures of the fireworks, you need to become a member of the Royal Botanical Gardens. So that way, when their party tickets become available, you're the first to get them. So this image is one of the most expensive images I have ever taken. If you take into account the tickets, the membership, the flight, all the stuff that it took to get there. But I love it. And the funny part is when I was researching this location, these boats are not there. So I initially thought I was going to have this beautiful, clean shot of the opera house and the bridge and the fireworks. And we show up to the party and I'm like, what are all these boats doing in the harbor? They're blocking my view. And they're all moving. And so it's kind of hard to take fireworks pictures because you can see the boats are soft and the boats are all moving. And there was one boat in particular that thankfully is missing from this photo, but it's the tail end of the boat on that far right side. It had these bright blue lights underneath it. And it's not a cool looking yacht boat. It's like this speedboat thing. It was the ugliest boat you could ever imagine. And it's like right in my photo. But thankfully, they would eventually putter out of the way and go putter, 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 and get out of my shot, at least for a couple of them. This is another cool experience that I would have never known about because, we don't know a lot about, we just know the main things. Like I knew about Ayers Rock, I knew about the Opera House, but apparently up in Darwin, one of the cool things they do is they basically go fishing for alligators. So you take this boat tour. It's one of the only places in the world where you're legally allowed to hang a giant piece of meat off the side of your boat and entice these giant, is it crocodiles or alligators? I don't remember. I think it's the crocodiles, Nile crocodiles, out of the water to go. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then one of the cool things was we saw an albino crocodile, like in the wild. Like that was really cool. So those are some things that I didn't even know about, so when you're doing these some days, it's helpful to research. It's helpful even to book a travel agent if you don't have time to research, or maybe pick a photography workshop, go with someone in the area that knows all these things, because doing all the research, if you don't enjoy it, can be cumbersome. I enjoy the research sometimes, but this is one of the few trips where I was just busy and I said, here, this is what my niece likes to do. She wants to not sit and look at things, so plan some activities for us. And so travel agent can be your best friend, though I think it's hard these days to even find a travel agent anymore. One one of the things, you see pictures all the time and you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. I want to experience that. But sometimes you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So before we went to Australia, I knew about all the jokes about like the Australian salute or whatever, which is a person waving their hand in front of their face. That's a real thing. That has to do with the flies. And, I'm like, we have flies in South Dakota. I'm cool. I get it. They're flies. It's fine. I live with them. The flies in Australia are different.
Are they out to kill you?
They are thirsty flies. And so rather than just land on you and be annoying, they land near your mouth and your nose and your eyes because they're trying to drink water. And so that's why you're doing this. And so when we first checked into our hotel, we of course went to the gift shop because I'm still a woman and I like to shop and I like to bring home little knickknacks, even though my husband tells me to knock it off. And so we go into the gift shop because it's like 105 outside, just because it's air conditioned. And right at the front counter, as we're buying our little gifts, they have these little tiny head nets for sale for $5. And I've traveled enough to know that there's these gimmicks, right? Because they're just trying to make money off the tourists. And so I look at the lady at the register and I said, do you really need a net for your head? I mean, are you just trying to get extra money out of us? And she goes, no, you're going to really want to buy it. And so I was like, okay, it's $10. We'll see what happens. I have never been more thankful to put a net over my head while I'm taking pictures. And it is difficult to shoot through a blue net because they were blue. They didn't even like blend in with like khaki color. It was just a bright blue net over my head. It's really hard to shoot through. Very hard to shoot through. And actually, you know what? I'll even show you. I think I got it in my camera. Oh, shoot. It's in the other camera bag. Darn. I thought I had it. It's so funny. Right? No. Yeah, it's so funny. Like I felt like such an idiot wearing this thing. But after I realized like we'd go on tours and you're like, doing this, it's like I've had enough. And then you put it on and life was just better. And then the people that didn't have one, they'd be like, where'd you get that at?
You're like the gift shop, $5.
Yep, that's right. So, all those fun little things that happen behind like the things you just don't know. That's what makes the pictures memorable. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful picture of Ayers Rock and that's what I wanted. But the thing that I remember the most is that we had to buy the fishing nets to put over our heads to keep the flies off our face. Yeah, so, you might recognize this one, right?
We are starting to run out of time a little bit.
Oh, shoot. I could talk forever.
I know. We got cool stories. If you do have questions for Erica, let's go ahead and put them in chat right now while she's telling this story on here. So if you do want to know about something or get some advice about pursuing your own dreams, or maybe you just want to share with everybody what your dreams are that you're not going to wait, let's put them on here so that we can get a dialogue going. But while you're typing that one, because I know it takes a second to type, Erica, will you tell us more about this image? Because that's our first question. Yeah. What is this photo?
Well, this is Olympic National Park over in Washington, over in Chris's neck of the woods. And this was the second time visiting this waterfall. So the first time I went, I wasn't like the best photographer. I was just out visiting a friend. And so when I had the chance to revisit this falls, I already knew what I wanted to create. I knew the emotion that I was feeling. And so I pre-visualized this image. And with Washington in particular, the trees are so massive, and having a person in that scene to me is so beneficial because, especially kind of like the bears, right? It's the person's back. So you can put yourself there on that bridge, hearing the waterfall, seeing the trees and the sun. And it's just breathtaking, and it just makes you want to stand there. And so I put this up just to talk about how, sometimes people don't want to revisit a place, and places are always changing. I've been to Yellowstone 10 times and I still am fascinated. And every time I go back, it's different, Same with this, trees can fall down, things change all the time. And so don't be afraid to revisit places, especially if you loved it. Sometimes it's better the second time, because you know where to go and you're not so trying to hit all the main touristy things. You can go back and do the smaller ones, which is really, really nice to do. So
Jill wants to know which falls this was in.
This is Soul Duck Falls. So it's over by Soul Duck Hot Springs. It's about 1.5 miles in. So if you're able, I highly recommend staying at the little resort there because you can soak in the hot spring pools that they have. And then rest your weary bones from hiking all day. It's a beautiful park. You can drive a whole circle around it. You got mountains, you got water, you got trees, you got beach. I mean, it's got something for everything. If you ever have a hard time finding a location spot for those people that say, I want beach only, and those people that want the mountains, it's got everything. And if you're a Twilight fan, you can go to the town of Forks where the movies take place.
The hobbits are better, right?
I know. I just thought it was funny. I was driving to one of the beaches and they were still advertising that.
So we've got a question from Andy. Besides Patagonia, what's your next someday?
The biggest someday that I've been working on right now is actually getting to Antarctica. I was supposed to actually leave for Antarctica the 13th of this November, but the pandemic is still causing turmoil everywhere. And so the company that we were booked with, they had two ships, or vessels, I should say, two vessels going down to view the solar eclipse. Well, they were only half full, and so they decided to combine them together. I was going for 3 weeks. The other one was only going for 2. And then I was informed I was now going for 2. And I said, that is not acceptable because I'm going for 3 weeks. And so after a lot of arguing and using my travel agent, which is Sharon Lobel, which you might know, who's an ASP member, and she's been taking a lot of other PPA members to Africa recently. She's the one that Christy and I have been dealing with. And so we're all set now to go next year. So fingers crossed, because that's just a repetitive pattern that just keeps happening to me, but that's okay. You just got to remain positive that eventually
it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
You got to keep trying. I'm not giving up. My goal really was to go to all the continents before I turned 40. And so I almost did it. Like I was like, because I'm 40 now. So I only got till July before I turned 41. So I've now concluded that 2020 doesn't count. That's
right.
That's
what I'm going. Yeah. It's like a birthday cake. That doesn't count either.
No
calories in that one. I got a question from Shelly. We're almost out of time, so we're going to hit these next couple of pretty quickly. But Shelly wants to know what your most and least used lenses are.
Honestly, I would say my most, that's really tough. I would say I probably use the 20-40-70 the least, even though I still use it because I want to create a view that's different than what we see, right? So our eyes see at around 50 millimeters. So I tend to like to go towards the wide angle, something the 14-24, because it's different, it's exciting, creates this new perspective on things. The same falls in suit with the 70-200. Let's focus in on a few more details rather than the whole scene. Let's narrow down to what I found interesting. So the image on the screen at the moment, this was shot actually with the 70-200. I don't have the exact millimeter, but I do use that a lot for landscape work, believe it or not just wildlife.
And then Anne wants to know where you went in the Canadian Rockies. She's from Alberta.
Oh, so I drove up through Calgary and then we ducked over into Banff area and then Lake Louise up into Jasper. Gone a little bit over into Kootenay just to see the Marble Canyon, which is really cool. And it's just literally right off the road. It's like so amazing. I would love to live there, but I don't think you guys want us to come. I think you're not going to let us in. If I lived there, you would never see me. I would probably be a Volkswagen bum and just live in my van.
Oh, the van
and drive
camping
around,
life.
See the mountains. That's all I would do.
So I've got some stuff to give away. So let's go ahead and give some prizes that are there with us. If anybody has any last minute questions, type them into chat. But I do want to give that shout out again to American Color Imaging for help bringing these together and putting them on. And they do have a special going on, 25% off of fine art prints. So if you're looking at getting some of your stuff printed on nice fine art papers, you can use the special promo code that's on the chat now. There should be a little present there that's got it. And I'll also send this in the follow-up email as well, so you can get some fine art prints, 25% off on there. And
Chris, does that include the Hannah Mule paper?
Yes, it does.
So I highly recommend that. I love printing on Hannah Mule with the pearl finish. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's nice when you have something that can showcase your work in a fine art way, especially while doing what you do with a lot of fine art imagery.
Most definitely.
So also do want to give you a heads up of some upcoming shows that we have coming up here in about 2 weeks. We've got Shannon Squires, The Art of Children's Portraits. And then next month, we've got Tony Harriman, The Heart of an Artist. That's intentionally not in October, so it's not Halloween related, Tony's. Not Heart of an Artist. A little bit of a joke there. Not that funny, but still, right there. Okay, let's give away some stuff again from ACI. And up first, we've got a $50 lab credit. So this is a $50 gift certificate. You can spend it on whatever you want. So let's see who that winner is. And we're going to spin the Wheel of Awesomeness for our $50.
So bummed I'm missing it. This is my favorite part.
Oh, and we've got Suzanne. Congratulations, Suzanne. I'm going to get that gift certificate sent out to you, so you've got it. Up next, we've got a $75 lab credit. It just keeps on getting better and better.
Heck yeah.
And let's see who's
I
getting
use
that
them
one.
for my printing. Their work is amazing. So you guys are in it for a treat. I love their stuff. So.
And who's it going to be? Looks like it's Elizabeth Wood.
Yay!
So congratulations, Elizabeth. And I've got one more prize to give away, and it's a $100 lab credit. I know, it's all this free money, right? Especially useful with holidays coming up. I don't know if you do holiday cards or have a ton of families stuff coming through, but yeah, now's the time. And let's see who this winner is. And, it is Maria. Nice. Congratulations, Maria. Oh, I put up you on there, right? So congratulations on winning those prizes. Be sure to be checking your email. I'm going to email you information on redeeming that. Also, if you have any ideas for future episodes you want to be on here, or you know a photographer that would be an amazing guest, I am very, very interested. Email me, or you can hit reply to those emails that go out. That's hello@cwooley.com, so that we can start talking on here. So we are just about out of time now, Erica. So any last parting words that you have for us?
Basically just do it. Stop saying someday. And I want everyone to message me what someday they're going to tackle. And we're all going to be accountability buddies for everybody. We're going to do stuff.
It is nice to have that accountability. Like we get caught up in our heads, be like, all right, I'm planning this out, or I've got a good excuse or good reason for not doing it.
Yep.
But like find somebody to say, all right, let's make this happen. A partner,
Yep.
absolutely amazing on that. So if you do want to take Erica up on her offer and say, yes, I want to know about that, or you want to know more about her book or anything like that, go and the email that I'm going to send out here in a couple of hours is going to have links to that as well. Or you can hit or scroll up a little bit earlier, and we've got links to Erica's book on there as well. But thank you so very, very much, Erica. Like, this was a blast getting to hear about your stories and how you're making your passion and your dreams come true. I know I learned a lot and got kind of inspired during this one. It definitely
well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's making me miss travel already. I'm like, I need to go somewhere right now.
Right? Yeah, we can just get done with this COVID thing. We can all start traveling again and
I know.
seeing
I've
those
got other
sites that are
plans.
there. So we're just getting lots of
that's
comments
why-
saying thank you so much, Erica, and how everybody loves you.
Oh, well, thank you. And the one thing I forgot to mention, they don't always have to be big some days, right? Sometimes it helps to do something small. So think about something local that you've always wanted to do. Like maybe you've always wanted to do a helicopter tour in your area. Go do that. It doesn't have to be a big, audacious task. Like start something small. Because like you said, it's hard for some of us to travel right now. So learn more about where you're from. Because sometimes we take that for granted too, Sometimes we all live in beautiful places and never even go see things
Well,
where we
I'm
live.
totally guilty of that. And it's like, oh, wait, there's people that fly in from all over to photograph around here. Maybe I should spend the
Right?
45 minutes and drive there.
Exactly.
I'm
right.
so guilty of that.
Yep, we all are. We all are.
All right.
So,
Well,
thank
that's
you
a
for
wrap
having
for
me.
tonight then. Thank you again so much, Erica. It was a pleasure having you here.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really glad you guys listened, and I look forward to seeing what some days you guys are going to start tackling here in the next few months.
Right. Check that email. All right.
Right. Bye.